Ramona Lowery is the commissioner for the City of Cleveland's local sewer department. She is a civil engineer by trade. She actually says she had never met an engineer until she went to college to study engineering. Ramona now works to mentor others and to show them that engineers can be women and people of color.
Okay, I am Ramona Lowery, a civil engineer by trade, a graduate of Cleveland State University, but currently the commissioner for City of Cleveland's local sewer department.
Okay.
And
We have
so,
actually been working with some folks at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District.
okay,
I had no idea
they were
that
different.
I had no idea that it was this interesting.
Yeah, and I worked there 7 years. So before I came here,
You were over there.
which is interesting because actually when I graduated college in 1996, this was my first job in the engineering department. So
Wow.
I've had a couple other stops after that, and sewer district was one for 7 years, and then returned back here almost 6 years ago.
Okay. So first question, if I could ask you, during your education, during your career, do you have any mentors? Anybody that sticks out, and not necessarily looking for names, just
Yes,
who
several.
have you had that's impacted your life? Tell me how that worked out.
Yeah, I've had several, and I still do have several mentors, which is why I also serve as a mentor to students because I know how it's important that it's been over the course of my career. One example that comes to mind, I thought about getting a master's degree in civil engineering. And one of my mentors still works for the city. Question was why? Like you want to run a department, why not get an MPA and run a division? And it's like, huh? You just really couldn't even see that 20 years ago. And so I think the advice that I've continued to receive along the way from various mentors, I think it's nice to have male and females. I have both
Mhm.
to get different perspectives. So yes, I do definitely have mentors and serve as a mentor myself to many students.
And what has been the value of that mentorship to you over the years?
The value for me has just been a lot of guidance because anytime I've made a career move, even when I return back here, I love working at the sewer district, great organization. But when this opportunity came up, it was in a different capacity, initially as deputy commissioner. And so, which then resulted in last year getting promoted to commissioner. And so for me, it's just been very good. Even as I said, I would have did a master's in civil engineering. Not that that was a bad thing, but it just would have did a different career direction. Like you said, more commonly an engineering manager of a section, which we have here. That's one of my many units. But as with the MPA, then I'm overall 140 employees, the entire division. And so my mentors, I always run questions by them, even still with different pieces of advice.
Um, since you just said advice, I want you to think back to when you were, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. Having had the benefit of hindsight now, and you've gone through your education and your career, if you could go back and talk to yourself at that age, what would you tell yourself?
I don't know about that young back, but everything would be different, which is why I do the program NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. I'm a first generation college student. And as I tell the students that participate in the program, I didn't know an engineer until I went to school for engineering. And so for them, I always make the kids, you sit on this side of the room, the volunteers on that side. Like, look at these 20 faces, kind of what you said earlier. They are what they see. And so look at these 20 plus faces in here, and these are engineers. And so I don't know about 8 or 9, but more high school. The coursework that I took, like looking for the easy way out, just not knowing, to challenge myself. So 8, 9, I don't, although it's important to go back that far. So that's why 2 years ago we did drop NSBE down to K through 8.
Mhm.
But I don't know that I would have did, anything different. I wasn't even thinking about a career at that time, but with programs like this, I think it's good to plant that seed at that age.
What would you tell someone who is, maybe in middle school and is struggling with, say, math, And I'm thinking just in terms of like my own education. I think for a lot of kids, there's a math aversion. You hit algebra and you're thinking, why do I need to know this? This
Right.
doesn't. What do you tell kids that are getting discouraged or just don't see the value in it to them at that time?
For middle school, high school, I tell all the students, stick it out. Even we just had this conversation this past Saturday, because we also had a panel discussion with college students from Cleveland State, Case, Kenton, Akron. And the thing we try to do with the sessions is show the real connection for the math. The guy that works with the younger students is just phenomenal, mechanical engineer. So I definitely want to make sure to connect him, but a mechanical engineer at Turner Construction. And he tries to connect reality with what the students are doing, so then they can see, hey, here's how I use this.
Mm-hmm.
And just to see the value of it and to make it fun. This Saturday they made ice cream. But then he went into all the elemental components of it, not just making ice cream, but that's the end result, good ice cream. And so for the students, as high school in particular, tell them stick it out. And then on the college side, middle school wise, tell them to take those challenging courses, which will translate to high school, which then translates to college. So to me, that is like really a good entry point. And so we just encourage them to not shy away from the challenging classes, take those advanced classes, because it just gets repetitive, and which is a benefit once you've seen it multiple times.
Yeah. But what do you tell a kid that wants to shy away from that challenge? I mean, that's just a life advice kind of thing.
Yeah. We just try to make as many connectors. Like I tell them, a lot of times I'll go through the example and say, okay, let's talk about everything in this room. There's nothing in the room that an engineer hasn't touched. And so we just tell them it's the reality of it. I have on eyeshadow, I tell them some makeup, chemical engineers. So we just do life connectors for them. Say in our clothing, the chair you're sitting on. So we just make the connector. So a lot of times that helps. And then tell them about the support system, getting assistance, which we know is kind of helpful for people, but just tell them to reach out. So
okay.
Just always try to encourage them. Of course, we're here if they need help, and point them in direction of programs that provide assistance if we're not available, but really just making it fun. We do a competition, math, and like I said, we just do the whole STEM, but try to make it fun so that they get that piece to it as well.
Okay. Last question. What does STEM mean to you?
Similar to what I just said, it's in everything. It's something that I did not know. Like I said, I'm first generation college student, never thought of it, any piece of it. And so for me now, knowing my kids in elementary, I have 2 children. So if we're driving, we're looking at license plates. Who can add up the numbers the fastest? You know what I mean? So the same way like we do with the kids and the programs that I do, just try to make, what's that connection? And so now different things, we just bought this awning coverage thing. And so I'm telling my son, 13, like, this is a bad design that we didn't think of. And then we were looking at another thing because it captures the water. And so just talking about, here's the slope of this, here's how it's pitched, and then here's this other 10, and here's how that. So just try to make it in absolutely everything. If we do, my daughter plays tennis, and then if say, how fast is that ball going? But then just to do the formula. And so for them, just to connect it where it's just like second nature. Yeah. And so that's the same thing. So we try to do for the students. So you don't even realize you're doing math because they're just like, I want to beat mom or dad, and adding up these numbers.
Yeah. So, yeah. You're right. I mean, STEM is everywhere.
Yeah. And we do it in everything. And so now my, children will ask different questions, like I said, and just trying to show the connection or the design or, here's what we do. And here's the reality part of it, because I tell them a lot of times school is more difficult well, not a lot of times, I think all the time is more difficult than it is in the real world when they're doing an actual application.
Mhm.
You
Sure.
know, so that's always something, stick it out that 5 years or more if it takes more, because the end result for me has, like I said, been beneficial being first generation
That's great.
college student. So.
Yeah, I was math averse and I deeply regret it at this point in my life.
This interview is part of a series of profiles for NeoSTEM's I Am STEM initiative, a public awareness campaign to elevate the visibility and accessibility of the many STEM career pathways available to underserved students throughout Northeast Ohio. Please visit www.neostem.org to hear more inspiring stories.